Hello there. So today I'd like to show you a very gentle restorative inversion. It's a variation of the yoga pose Viparita Karani, for those of you that are familiar with it. That's legs up the wall pose, but we're going to be working to a chair, which takes a little bit of the strain off the hamstrings for those of you who are tight in the hamstrings. There are a couple of contraindications for this. You wouldn't want to do this pose if you were past the first trimester of your pregnancy, so after about the third month, or 13 weeks. You wouldn't really, it's not recommended if you're in the heavier days of your flow of your period. It's not recommended if you have any sinus trouble, if you've got sort of an infection in the sinuses, or if there's any pressure in the eyes. You know, if you're feeling uncomfortable because of too much pressure in the head or around the eyes or around the nostrils, then you're not going to be able to relax in this pose. And the last one is a hiatal hernia, especially if it's playing up. You would probably want to give this one a miss. If you have any questions though, do ask and let me know. And any questions about the suitability of any practice for you on a medical basis, then please speak to your doctor or medical practitioner. So what you'll need for this pose is a few blankets. I would say at least 3, plus maybe 1 to cover yourself up if you don't have blankets. Towels will do. For covering yourself, you could use a quilt, you could use anything. Here at the moment it's not that cold, so I'm sort of managing without a blanket, but it does help to give you that cozier feeling. Something for the eyes, so I've got a scarf here, but an eye pillow, or just a bit of folded something that you can pop over your eyes to bring some darkness. A couple of cushions, or you can have a couple of blocks to hand. Those of you that have yoga blocks on hand, they're quite useful too. I'll show you how and why. And then a bolster of some kind. So I've got the trusty homemade bolster here, which is a bit soft. I've got a couple of cushions just from or pillows just from the bed. They will work for this one quite nicely. Or if you have a bolster, then happy bolster. So with all this stuff in mind, what I want to talk about first of all is just the initial basic setup. So this pose could be practiced very, very simply, just by lying on the floor with your legs up into a chair and laying down. So if you have nothing else, you could just do this. And that's still really, really lovely. So in traditional wisdom, raising the knees above the heart has a quietening effect on the mind. And so here we are, with the knees raised, the head lowered. And that's really lovely for the back. So those of you that are out in the garden a lot at the moment, just coming in and popping your legs up on something and then laying down, can really let the back of the body, the back of the pelvis, release and relax. You don't have to have a chair even. So I'm going to come out this way by bringing my feet to the front of the chair and then rolling to the side, using my arms to bring myself up. You could just pop your feet on the sofa or on the side of the bed. Most people have a chair somewhere at home, but if it's not handy or it's inconvenient to bring anywhere, you can really adapt this one. So we're going to take it up a little level by supporting the lower back and raising the lower back a little bit, and consequently raising the legs a little bit. So when you're in the pose, you always want your knees and your lower legs to be parallel to the floor. So if I'm going to raise my hips up a little bit, then consequently it's going to have an effect on where my knees are coming to the chair. I want to pad up the chair a little bit too. So for that reason I've got a couple of cushions and I can just pop on top. You could also use a couple of blocks and a blanket. If you have lots of pillows around, you could pop a pillow on. Well, you know, there's lots of ways that you can pad out a chair just to give yourself that little bit of extra height. And how high you go really depends on the length of your legs and the height of your chair. So you'll have to spend a little bit of time working it out. But, you know, it's all worthwhile. Remember the golden rule, you build the lift to where you are. You're not trying to make the body come down to the lift. So that's you know, if you remember nothing else, just remember that one. So when we're building the lift for the back, so I'm going to pop these cushions back on my chair. If I were in a classroom situation, I would just use a bolster. I'd have the bolster about a hand's width or so away from the chair. And then to come in, and I'm going to demonstrate with this one because this is nice and easy and familiar. You sit yourself on the bolster, you swing your legs up to the chair and you wriggle your bottom around, and you bring your hands back behind you so they're supporting you down, and you can just come down onto your elbows and then you come down onto your shoulders. Now, depending on how it feels for the arms, they can come up over the head or they can come out to the side. It really depends on what feels best for the hands. In terms of the position of the bolster, for me it feels most comfortable when I've got the lower ribs supported and the tailbone is just slipping slightly off the other side of the bolster. So I'm going to lift up here, and you can see what I'm doing. I'm propping one leg onto the chair, just pushing down. You could do it with both legs, lifting enough so that I can bring the bolster into a better position for me. So the principles are that once you're in position here, the legs are supported up nice and high. Here we are. And then there's a gradual sort of drawing down of energy through the legs into the belly, which is flat. And the energy can pull there into the reproductive and the digestive organs before coming up over into the respiratory organs, the heart, the upper body. The chin is inclined towards the chest. So in yoga terms, that stops any of the energy moving around the body, coming in to disturb the head. The head stays nice and calm. And that's it. And you could stay there for maybe 5 minutes, 10. It's not quite as long a stay as the other poses that we've done so far. Just because if you're not familiar with it, then that can be quite strong on the back. If it is very strong on the back, then you just take a lower lift. So I'm going to show you some other variations of lifts. That's quite high and quite hard. You can just take a couple of blankets, and actually there's something I forgot to mention, which I will mention now, and that is I'm using a non-stick mat, a sticky mat, a yoga mat. That's a good idea because it stops the chair from slipping and sliding if you're on a slippy surface, but it also consequently stops the shoulders and the neck from being able to slide. So what I would do, which I forgot to do, is pop a blanket just onto the mat so that I've got a nice soft slidey surface to lay on. Now, if you don't have a bolster or that's feeling a bit too high for you, then I found that just using a couple of pillows is quite nice. It's a bit of a wider lift, So you'll definitely be, unless you're incredibly long, you'll definitely be supporting into the ribs and the tailbone, just dropping off that top one. But it's a little bit lower, and it's actually, if there's any kind of discomfort in the back, coming down a bit lower would be the first thing that you do. So here we are. And that feels really nice, really comfortable, really supportive on the back. The pelvis can really release down. And I can just really relax there. You could also use, just going to move the other things out of the way, a couple of blocks, just side by side, so end to end like that, with a blanket or two folded over just to soften the edges of the blocks. So I've got a blanket folded over there. I'm going to come up. Now if you find that lowering your lift on the floor means that there's any kind of pulling through the legs, or the pelvis isn't quite settling right down, then you just take away some of your extra support on the chair. And again, that feels quite nice. The tailbone is just dropping off the top, and the edge of the blocks is just coming into the waist. Again, it depends on how long-bodied you are. I'm quite short, so everything tends to come very quickly up into the ribs. And then the last variation would be just to use your homemade bolster. Just going to smooth out any crinkles there in the blanket. So these are all basically variations of the same setup. There are a couple of things that you can also do for added interest, loveliness. One of them is to use a sandbag. Now, I'm aware most people don't have sandbags at home. This is a bag especially made for yoga, filled with sharp sand. And I'm trying to remember offhand what the weight is. I think it might be 5 kilos, but that sounds like a lot. That's like 5 bags of sugar, isn't it? If you were going to do something, if you were going to make one of these at home, maybe experiment with slightly less. Sharp sand is useful in that it's got a nice feel to it, so if you lay it down, it's got a really good weight to it, and it moulds to the shape of the body. So, we might use it to hold feet together, or just to bring a bit of pressure into an upper leg, or, there are all sorts of reasons why you might like to use it. But for this one, we can use it to hold the knees and the feet together. So I was talking about making one at home. Probably the easiest way would be to take a pillowcase or similar and pop some rice or some lentils or some beans, something like that in there. If it's a clean pillowcase, then you get to reuse your rice, lentils or beans. You're not too fussy. So I don't want to encourage lots of waste. Or you could make one if you have sharp sand to hand. Those sorts of skills. If anyone's really interested in making props, let me know, and I can send you details of sort of dimensions and how things are constructed. So I'm losing track again. This happens a lot, doesn't it, when I'm trying to do these videos. Okay, so popping your bottom onto the bolster, probably the easiest way to do it, and what you have to watch for is because it's quite heavy, is just straining the back as you're going in. If I were in a classroom situation, everyone would come into the pose and then I would walk around and pop the sandbag onto people's legs. But when you're on your own practicing, you don't have the luxury of a yoga helper. You have to do it all for yourself. Knees onto the chair, and then just pop the sandbag or the weight onto your legs, and then same as before, you can just adjust in. And what I would do is just let the knees and the legs really come together, let the inner thighs roll in, and then just relax your effort. So that just brings a little bit of internal rotation into the tops of the thighs and a bit more broadness into the lower back. But if you don't have anything to hold the legs, don't try and hold the knees together and the legs together. Just let them relax apart. Otherwise, you're just bringing too much effort and too much strain into the pose. So there we are. If we're going to reach over there, then you can bring something over the eyes just to give you that little bit of darkness. You can set a timer if you want to. Insight Timer's an app that I use on my phone. It's the free timer. There are things that you can pay for, but the timer's free, and you can just set any amount of time onto there. You know, a couple of minutes to hours and hours if you wanted to. And that's handy. It has a little gong that you can choose as well for ending your practice. So rolling out when I come down. If you wanted to tie your legs together as well, if you wanted to bring your knees together and have your knees held together whilst you're in the pose but you don't have a sandbag, another way to use a scarf would be just to wrap it around your legs. Now really bring everything together, wrap it around, tie them up, and then kind of inch your way back onto your lifts. Legs up and down. So there's a million and one ways to adapt these poses, which is what I really like. And there we go. In. So give yourself 5 to 10 minutes in this one, depending on your lower back. Listen to your back. So if it starts to twinge, when it starts to become uncomfortable, or if it's uncomfortable, give it a rest, come back to it another day. You may find, it takes a moment or two to settle, but it shouldn't take longer. If things aren't easing out after a couple of minutes or a minute or so, just do something else. But if it feels comfortable, then enjoy. I have been in here, I've been in this pose for sort of upwards of 20 minutes on good days. It's so nice when you're feeling a bit harangued, or your legs are aching, or you're tired, or life is getting on top. It's really lovely. It's a beautiful one for calming a busy mind. So any panics, any anxiety, get your legs up. Even if it's laying on the bed with your legs just resting up against the wall, or laying on the floor with your knees on the sofa. Anyway, be well, stay well, be happy. Much love. Namaste.